Hello, BookTube. We're continuing with my library tour, despite the fact that I absolutely should not be continuing with my library tour. I've had way too many chunks taken out of today already, and I am still buried in deadline work. I'm buried. But I can't not make videos, right? I can't not talk to my imaginary BookTube friends, especially not now that I'm a sexy influencer. So we're going to continue with my library tour. I'll make a few more videos and then I'll buckle down to work. So we are in the little book room here, and we are going, I'm just doing a shelf at a time. And we're going to start with, okay, great. This is The Great Beach by John Hay, with illustrations by David Gross. Look like that. Very nice little black and white illustrations. John Hay is a Cape Cod writer. These are, The Great Beach is a Cape Cod book. There's a, if you picture Massachusetts as a rectangle, there's a fish hook that extends out into the Atlantic Ocean. And that fish hook is Cape Cod. And the outer ring, the outer curve of that entire hook is the Great Beach. Which is an amazing thing on its own. It's an amazing thing to walk. It doesn't take much time at all to walk it. And it's, if you ever get a chance to do it, if, for instance, maybe you've got a timeshare or something like that in Falmouth or Sandwich or something like that, take the afternoon, especially if it's a nice, cloudy, stormy afternoon, to walk the Great Beach. You can just park. There are plenty of, natural park lots that you can just drive into, park, and then walk all the way up and all the way back. The greatest experience of the Great Beach is to walk all the way up on the ocean side, and then cross over up around Provincetown and come all the way back down on the inside, which is wind-protected leeward marshes. Very, very enjoyable. Then we have John Hay again. This is Nature's Year, where he goes through the seasons on Cape Cod, which is, this has illustrations again by David Gross, and this is, will take into account a Cape Cod that most people don't see. Most people go to the Cape to vacation in the summer. So most people don't experience Cape Cod during the autumn or the winter, especially the winter. And I have many, many times. I know Cape Cod in every one of its seasons endlessly. Just endlessly. I know everything about what those seasons are like in calm weather and storm. And it's, I can attest the same thing I would say about Cape Cod that I would say about Venice, which is that there is a kind of beauty, a very strong kind of beauty, that is not seen by most of the people who visit these places because they only go during the summer. And then yet another John Hay book. This is The Run. This one had a library plastic covering on it, so I didn't need to make one myself. Again, with illustrations by David Gross, and again, just this is about the run of alewife and other fish that the run is the term for when they are suddenly there again. They're suddenly spawning and swimming, and suddenly the fishing is on again after the long seasons in which they're not, in which the fish aren't there. Taken together, The Great Beach, Nature's Year, and The Run. I don't know if I think there might be one other John Hay that I don't have, and I'd want them all in these hardcovers with the gross illustrations. Then we have another Cape Cod book, a slightly better known author. This has illustrations by Henry Barbicane, who I love. Get him illustrating anything that I can. And this is Cape Cod by Henry David Thoreau. In this, who did this edition? Bramhall House did a whole bunch of these, and they're quite lovely. And of course, I'm going to show you Henry Barbicane illustrations there because he is a favorite of mine. He does spot illustrations as well here, but here are some birds over the ocean. Very nice. Very, very nice. I like Thoreau's writing. The more down-to-earth and nuts and boltsy it is, the more every once in a while, he verges into proto-Dubroism, and those are as tedious as all other Dubro stuff. But when he writes about Cape Cod or the Merrimack River, things like that, those books tend to be really, really good. Cape Cod is wonderful. Okay, then we have George Dangerfield. This is an old Paladin paperback. I really don't think this would hold up to a second. I need to find this book in hardcover. It's a great, great book. It's called The Strange Death of Liberal England. And it's a political tract on the first 20 years of the 20th century, and the seismic political changes that happened there as a result of manipulations of Parliament and the rather astonishing social bills that were put through at the time, the kinds of things that you'd like to tell yourself can't happen today. And that makes it sound very boring, but this is such a great author. Every page has a fantastic turn of phrase. And I have this Paladin paperback, and I think I have one other copy of this same Paladin paperback because I've never seen it in a hardcover. And I really want it in a hardcover because these things are too delicate for me. What else have we got here? What's our next one? Oh, great. Okay, talk about needing something in a hardcover. I really need a better edition of this book. I've read this so many times that it's falling apart. This is by Susanna Dunn, and this is The Sixth Wife. Susanna Dunn has written a handful of Tudor historical fiction. I cannot recommend these books strongly enough. They are not nearly as well known as all of the other Tudor fiction, all the other mainstream Tudor fiction that's come out in the last 20 years, and they should be. I think one of the reasons why maybe they aren't is because Susanna Dunn makes the totally legitimate artistic decision to write these things not only in contemporary diction, but in a contemporary sensibility. Those are choices that a historical novelist, any historical novelist, has to make. One way or another, they have to make those choices. She decides to tell these as though this is about Catherine Parr, Henry VIII's last wife, but as though Catherine Parr and the Seymours and Henry VIII himself and the princesses were all relatively contemporary people, that they thought about the world in contemporary ways, and certainly talked about it that way. I'm not saying it's slang. It's hard to describe, but she makes no attempt at a thee and thou type of cod historicism. None at all. Instead, these are incredibly gripping. This is such an incredibly I mean, she's written other books. She wrote a book on Anne Boleyn and a couple of others, but this one is so incredibly gripping. It captures the essence of Catherine Parr beautifully, and also the tragedy of the time period, because one of the huge juxtapositions that you'll get if an author decides to do what this author decides to do, which is write her characters as though they were us, as though they were people we would immediately know. There's a very, very strong argument that they were not, that they were completely alien because of the way they viewed the world. But if you take as your novelistic assumption, as this writer does, that people are always people, and if you write them that way throughout the course of the book, well, then when those people encounter the rough edges of the actual age in which they live, an age in which, keep in mind, there was no medicine. We like to think that medicine goes all the way back to Hippocrates, but actually that's not true. Medicine goes back to the 1950s. The 1950s. There was no medicine in Catherine Parr's day. So she underwent, for instance, let's just say hypothetically, a complication due to a pregnancy. Well, she would suffer and die like a livestock animal. There wasn't anything that anyone could do about it. And if you have written your characters in completely immediate, real-world ways, that's going to hit a lot harder than it does when it's a pasteboard character from 4 centuries ago, right? A character in a Miles Standish melodrama from the 1900s, they can die, they can be tortured. It's not going to make that much of a difference because they were never you. They never seemed like you or anybody you know. I guess the long and the short of it being, if you encounter it, at your thrift shop, your library, or whatever, any novel by Susanna Dunn, any historical novel of hers, grab it and read it. You're going to love it, but especially The Sixth Wife, especially. Okay, all right. Well, I think we've seen this already. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this library tour. In addition to creating a visual record for myself, is to winnow out doubles. And I think we've already seen this. This is Margaret Stanger. This is that quail, Robert. A wonderful story there she is with Robert. A wonderful story about a woman who adopts a little quail and gets to know the quail, and the bird enters into their lives. I think this is illustrated as well. Yes, there's the quail sneaking up on a dog by a fireplace. I'm pretty sure that I have another copy of this, at least one, here in this room, because when I see it, I grab it. And I'm consoled in the wisdom of that approach, because I haven't seen this in a hardcover in a long time, many years. So I'm probably within my rights to grab it when I see it. Okay, this next one, also Cape Cod. There's a bit of a theme on this shelf. I have not organized these books. If there's a grouping, like yesterday we saw Mary Reynolds, that's just accidental. This is a great book. This is by Wyman Richardson, and this is The House on Nauset Marsh. which is also a Cape Cod book. It's a Cape Cod of a very different vintage, a Cape Cod that is now largely gone. A Cape Cod that was beginning to become a vacation mecca for the wealthy or for the vacationing middle class, but that was mostly just a rural, small-town peninsula. That's the Cape Cod in this book. This also has illustrations by Henry Bugby Keene, and it is very much there's an old boy. You'll never even see this on the Cape anymore. An old stove. It used to be in every old house. Now the old houses are largely gone. They've largely been renovated to a fairly well and are let out for B&B. I want to get a full page picture from the illustrator. Well, no, there you're looking at birds. He does all the spot illustrations as well. And this is not a central narrative. This is just a collection of pieces. He wrote these originally as independent pieces. A collection of observations about what it was like to live on Nauset Marsh 100 years ago in the old farmhouse. Just a terrific, charming book. Probably it would cast a spell on you no matter what, but I would imagine the spell would be irresistible if you know Cape Cod and have spent any time there and maybe have somehow missed this book. So what's the... okay, the next one is also the house on Nauset Marsh. So I really should be making these things stick out because I don't need the shelf space in here. I can always find room here in the little book room, but I don't have room for doubles in this room. So I should really see to that. Oh, okay, all right. This one has a nice library dust jacket. A lot of these books do. A lot of the books in this room do. That's good. This is Roger Tory Peterson and James Fisher. This is Wild America. And this also has illustrations. The illustrations here are by Roger Tory Peterson himself. And they can be very elaborate. But he also does spot illustrations as well. And this takes you through America. It takes you through all of the biomes, all of the districts of America, talking about the wildlife. The birds, the corresponding megafauna, the vermin or the pests or whatnot. Always with a dirge. This is very much a funereal book. This is all about how wild America is. This is what it looks like. This is how it behaves, and also it's doomed. There were a few books like this at the time when this one came out, but it's wonderfully done. And it tells stories about animal populations that either have vanished, as the authors predicted, or that have rebounded, in either case, they're fascinating to read about. Okay, then we have a volume edited with an introduction by Ellery Queen. In this case, the introduction is certainly by Ellery Queen. Let's not put too much weight on whether or not he edited it. And this is 101 Years Entertainment. The Great Detective Stories, 1841 to 1941. Big library, modern library, giant volume that has it's an anthology of all kinds of great vintage murder mysteries. I've gotten so many author suggestions from this book, as all great anthologies do. They not only, the great ones not only have a rhythm, a sort of a vision of their own and give you a great reading experience, but they also point you in the direction of authors that you might really like. And this one did that. Oh, okay. This next one is, I believe, a UK trade paperback. This also did something along those same lines, but not with reading, with looking. This is an old Faden production. I don't think they make this anymore, called 500 Self-Portraits. This is a trade paperback of this volume. When this came out as a hardcover in the American edition, it was called that's all it is. It's just one self-portrait after another of all kinds of artists. There's Dürer, there's Andy Warhol, there's Rembrandt. This is one self-portrait after another, page after page after page of reproductions. You really have to be careful with it or you'll crack its spine. I keep waiting to find this in a big hardcover. I know it came out in America in a big hardcover. The neat little detail about the little hardcover that it came out in the U.S. market is that the cover was reflected silver. So, which was kind of canny on the part of the production design team because the cover made a 501st self-portrait. You were looking at your own reflection when you held up the book. I don't think I have that hardcover anymore. I don't think I have a duplicate of this at all. And that needs to be fixed because I go back to this a lot and this thing the binding will not take that kind of abuse. It's going to be a very sad day when it breaks open. Then we have another Modern Library Giant edition. This is The Flowering of New England by Van Wyck Brooks. I found this on the sidewalk. On somebody's front steps. They had a whole bunch of books with a sign saying, please take. This has a lovely understated New England cover. This is all about great New England authors, gigantic figures like Thoreau or Whitman, and also lots of forgotten figures. This book, this and New England Indian Summer just made this author, just made him as somebody who could pontificate about American literature until they nailed the coffin shut. And that's just what he did. But it's great reading, absolutely great reading. Okay, all right, this next one, this is getting a little embarrassing here. This is the third double on this shelf alone. This is another copy of Owl by William Surface. I really need to take control of this somehow. How many copies of Owl have we seen so far on this little tour? Well, I'll get it under control when this is all done. I will then go, once we're done, I'm not going to do it, in motion, because that could cause all sorts of confusion on my part. But those of you who haven't seen the first 6 times that I talked about this book, it's a story, again, a brief story about, like that Quail Robert, they belong on the same shelf. There's a little shelf of great books about people who adopt wild birds. That is a very active subgenre of nonfiction, and they tend to bring out the best in their authors. They're incredibly charming books, usually. This is one of the best ones. It doesn't try to be charming. It's not nearly as folksy as that Quail Robert, about a man who adopts a tiny little owl and the impression that the owl makes on the family. And then the last one. Okay, the last one is by David Howarth. This is 1066, The Year of the Conquest. Skinny little thing. This is a Penguin trade paperback. Yes. This is a Penguin trade paperback. David Howarth is fantastic. He's an incredible writer. And this is a terrific book. There have been many terrific books on the year 1066, the year of the Norman Conquest. But this one is half the size of all the others and is just as good. Just fantastic reading. If you want to start getting into reading fiction, to reading nonfiction, to reading history, and you maybe are a little intimidated by gigantic books or by the abstruseness of the subject or whatnot, this thing is not intimidating. It's brilliantly written so that you're going to be pulled right along. And it also knows that you might not know any of the subjects that it's talking about. So it tells you about them in a very companionable way. Just a terrific volume. I know that this thing existed in a boring-looking hardcover. I think the hardcover was in America, was just a yellow dust jacket. And I really ought to get that because this thing is, I love the book, but I'd rather have a more durable format. So there you go. That is the next shelf for our Library Tour 2022, full of doubles. But I'm not going to deal with those while I'm doing the tour. Once I'm done, once we get all the way to the end of the little book room, which is still a long way off, it will be summer by the time we finish this room. Once I get to the end, then I will pause and just go through all at once, pull all the doubles out, make sure I know what I have and what I don't. I bet I could clear 2 shelves up in here by doing that. I bet I could. But anyway, that'll do for now. I'm going to wrap this up, and with any luck, I will do a library tour tomorrow. If this deadline that I'm working under is really rough today, it could be either gone completely tomorrow or much rougher tomorrow. And if it's much rougher tomorrow, I will not be making any videos. So we shall see. I will try my best. But if so, I might see you then. Thank you.